I'm Maura Aarons-Mele, and this is The Anxious Achiever. If you've ever taken Psych 101, you surely remember Harry Harlow's heartbreaking experiment with baby monkeys. This is the famous experiment in which monkeys are not given a real monkey mother, but they are given a mother who is covered in cloth and is a little monkey-ish and soft to the touch, and a wire, quote, mother that feeds them. And the wire mother is hard and unappealing. And the monkeys, in many of Harlow's experiments, crave the soft presence of a parent figure so much, they choose the cloth-bound, softer stand-in for a monkey than the wire mother that gives them food. And when they're scared, they turn to their cloth mother. This experiment just makes me cry. You can watch it on YouTube if you need a tear break. And Harlow's experiment showed us a lot about attachment, right? Which means our sense in the world of being cared for, that there is a person for us, or many people, to whom we can turn to, who will comfort us. That person is often in infancy the mother, but it doesn't have to be, which is very liberating for us mothers. And today we're going to talk about attachment style and our careers, how the attachment style, which starts very young in childhood, affects us at work. And it's funny, this is a topic that you requested over the years, and so it's a great episode with Dr. Jack Hinman, who is the founder and executive director of Engaged Transitions. We're going to talk about how our attachment styles get developed and what they mean for us as we enter our careers. It's good news, I promise, and there will be no heartbreaking monkey videos. You sent me over a document that was called Superpowers Cheat Sheet, Attachment Style. And I was raised, like a lot of us, to think attachment is binary. You're securely attached, you're insecurely attached. It's your mother's fault. She was good enough. Classic Winnicott. And what this Superpowers document tells me is that it's way deeper than that. And there's no bad attachment style, that even those of us who are anxious or preoccupied have superpowers. And I wanted you to share some of those and bring us into a more sort of 2024 version of how we look at attachment styles.
The way I conceptualize attachment is that it's our operating system. It's our relationship operating system. It's a way for you to really understand the stress you feel in relationships and how you respond to that stress. So that translates into every aspect of our life. I mean, when you think about it, what is life about? It's about connection. It's about relationships. And so, of course, that kind of moves into the work environment where we're interacting with people, we're managing people, we're supervising people. So the stress we feel in relationships and how we deal with that stress goes directly back to our attachment. And also, too, it's really important to think about attachment. There's different attachment styles, and there's 4 different ones. And it's really important to conceptualize them not as like a label or as a diagnosis or pathological. Attachment is on a continuum. And so we also have different kinds of attachment, different kinds of people in our personal life, our work life, with our kids, and so on. It's on a continuum. And it's really, really based on anxiety and avoidance, trust and autonomy. There's the different spheres and different areas you fall into. Like, it's not binary, it's not black and white, it's on a continuum. And also, too, it's really important to understand is that we used to think about attachment being locked like in stone. It's like once you have your attachment style, you're set for life, you can't do anything about it. And the reality is that our relationship operating system, which is our attachment style, is always evolving. It's always updating. And the reality is it goes both ways. You could have grown up in a very disorganized, unhealthy family system and developed anxious attachment. But then do the work in your life and the relationships and connections you have, you can really shift your attachment into a more secure place. And it can also be the opposite. You could have grown up in a really secure environment and have like kind of your typical secure attachment, but then something really traumatic in your life happening that can really rock your attachment style. It can rock your relationship operating system and shift you into a very insecure place. It could be a death of a child. It could be a really damaging marriage and a really difficult divorce you went through that can really move in that space. So it's always flowing, ever going back and forth.
The ground coming out from under you in any way, even at work, I would imagine, if you're someone who identifies a lot with work, could shift that.
Yeah. Like think about it. How much is our identity based on like our jobs?
A lot.
Like 70%.
For a lot of us.
Yeah, I think I read a stat is that when we are kind of like introducing ourselves or connecting with people, we lead into the place like, where do we work at? So it's such a huge part of like our identity and part of ourselves. And so the way we manage relationships and our attachment style is going to directly impact the work environment. And if you look at research for people who are successful in their business careers, they're the connectors. People who know how to connect, keep and maintain relationships are the ones that are most successful in their jobs. Then you draw the line to that. So of course your attachment style is going to directly impact your professional success.
Okay, so let me ask a question here. Of course, I'm drawn to what is known as the anxious attachment style, preoccupied attachment style. Are we able to connect? Are we damaged?
So I want to just really quickly talk about the three main types of attachment styles and in this context of conversation, which I think will help this conversation. There's really four of them. So secure is like you're secure. Then there's the preoccupied, which we call the anxious type in a sense, but it's called preoccupied type.
You don't like calling it anxious, right? You don't like insecure or anxious. I've heard you say that.
Yeah, I don't like it because anxious also falls into the category of avoidant. Like people who have avoidant attachment style also have anxious attachment style. So preoccupied and avoidant really have anxious attachment style. It's just different how it plays out. And also it's different of like what their anxiety they're experiencing and how they manage it. So there's preoccupied. So a preoccupied person, like you really lean into relationships. Like we crave relationships. We want that connection. We're very vigilant about relationships. We're the person that's always texting our friends and staying in contact. We're like the glue in relationships. And so we're really like driven in that space. And we also feel a high degree of anxiety when we feel disconnected. That's the anxious, or which is I like to call preoccupied type. And then you have the disorganized type, which is more of a combination of like preoccupied and anxious. But for this conversation today, we're really going to stay focused on secure, like preoccupied, and also avoidant today.
We're going to not focus on disorganized.
Yeah, I mean, we could. So disorganized is it's a combination of like preoccupied and also avoidant. Usually people who are in the space of disorganized attachment style had a significant history of trauma, maybe as a disorganized person or being in a relationship with a disorganized person. It's that kind of push and pull piece where they so desperately want connection, so desperately want intimacy. But then when they drive into relationships, they get super anxious about the connection and they pull back. And they get overwhelmed with that connection. Then when they pull back with that connection, then they get anxious not being connected. So they're kind of going back and forth in that relationship.
So secure, avoidant, and preoccupied.
Yes. And it's great to kind of conceptualize how those different attachment styles play out like in relationships, specifically in a work setting. It's also important to look at from an attachment standpoint, what kind of attachment style does your boss have? And I think it's really helpful to kind of be aware of your attachment style and be aware of like your attachment style and your teams so that you know how to manage relationships. You might be supervising like a preoccupied attachment, like kind of supervisee, and being aware of that style. You're going to be mindful that they really crave connection. They really want feedback. So even like how you manage your one-on-ones is really important to understand the attachment style of you and also the attachment style of the person you're supervising. So a preoccupied person, you probably want to be really consistent about your one-on-ones. You want to give lots of feedback because they're really driven by feedback. They're wanting to grow. They're just craving that connection with you as a supervisor.
Because they are very relational. They have to see how they exist in relation to other people, right?
100%. They crave intimacy. They crave connection. And when there's a disconnect, that's when their anxiety shoots through the roof. Then that's when we kind of like start getting preoccupied. We start spiraling. For example, let's say you're at work and you're a preoccupied supervisee, and your boss walks in and completely doesn't even say hi to you that morning, goes straight to their office and shuts their door. So what is a preoccupied person going to automatically think?
They hate me. I messed up. I'm getting fired.
Yeah, exactly. Like, what did I do? Yeah, exactly. You go right into that space because a preoccupied person really owns the relationship, really owns the connection. So what's really helpful for that boss is like to be aware of like the patterns around them and the people around them. And also that preoccupied person who experienced their boss going straight through their door and shutting the door, their preoccupied person should sit there and go, okay, I'm feeling super anxious right now. I'm feeling very anxious about my relationship with my boss. And you can kind of catch yourself, whoa. Hey, Jack, remember, you have a tendency to fall into that preoccupied space. You start really understanding the anxiety that you're experiencing in the workplace with your colleagues. So imagine having an avoidant boss and a preoccupied supervisee.
Woo!
Imagine what that dynamic's like.
I think some definitions would be helpful here so that folks can sort of start thinking about, and obviously one podcast is not meant to diagnose anyone, but I would love you to just talk through some key characteristics or way that you might start examining your own style. Let's start with avoidant style. Give us some ways that this might show up and ways that you can start thinking about your own.
Yeah, I think the thing is that with an avoidant kind of person who falls in that kind of space, remember we're on a continuum, and it also our attachment styles can show up differently with different people in different settings too. A typical avoidant person can get kind of flooded, you get overwhelmed with like intimacy. And so what happens is that they might shut down like emotionally, and they might really want like a less connection, more disconnection in a sense. They really thrive on autonomy. They thrive on like freedom and resiliency. And so typically like an avoidant person, they're great in crisis. They're logical. They're like very crisis oriented. They're kind of coming up with a plan. Let's do this. And so they kind of thrive in that space. So they're really good at like completing tasks. They're typically more task masters than relational folks. And so they're really more focused on getting stuff done in the day versus like maybe how well they connected with people and work.
Probably better at feedback too, right? Or either getting feedback, they don't take it as personally.
Yes or no. Actually, it's quite interesting. You think that would be the case, but reality is that people who are kind of avoidant have a tendency to like really just thrive on resiliency, the way how it connects to feedback. And they might be a little defensive at this. Think about it. Think in contrast to an avoidant to an anxious person. An anxious person is going like, oh no, okay, give me feedback how I can be better. They really care about performing well, so they want to do well. A person who's avoidant might stay in a place of being more defended and less likely to feedback because they're a little more disconnected to themselves emotionally. They have that disconnect to the emotional experience, which can maybe decrease their level of insight, which impacts their like ability to receive feedback or make sense to them. Does that make sense?
That really makes sense.
They go to work more for like getting the task done versus for relationships and connection. And so they are more, maybe less likely to like get a lot of the relationship needs from work, which mean because they have maybe less needs of wanting to connect.
And probably are motivated by I always think about what's motivating people.
Results. Like avoidant person is really motivated by results and resiliency and independence. How well can they do this on their own? So think about it. So we go back in their history, like usually a typical like person who develops an avoidant style came from an environment of like where their parents were kind of unresponsive. They weren't responding to their needs as a kid, a degree of neglect in a sense. Maybe not like overt abuse, but they just weren't around. They just weren't there to provide for that child's needs. And so the way that child shaped themselves in to like protect themselves and to survive is like, I got to do it on my own.
Right. And maybe it's my way or the highway because I can only depend on myself.
Exactly. Yeah. Trust is an issue with people who've got an avoidant style, or maybe like trusting other people in those things as well. And so, yeah, it's like when you think about attachment, you want to think about degree of anxiety, like the level of anxiety, level of avoidance, level of autonomy, and level of trust. And those are the four factors that can shape the attachment style, which plays out how people manage our work life.
Secure. Is anyone secure? I used to have a cartoon on my refrigerator that it was entitled The Functional Family Convention, and it was one person standing by himself. So I guess my question is, are there any people who are truly securely attached?
I don't think so. I think it's
Really? I was being facetious, but yeah.
yeah, I think the thing is that it's fluid, it's extremely dynamic, and it's like floating around. And it's so funny when you were asking that question, my instant thought was when my wife literally said the other day, she's like, I'm secure in this marriage, so you could be insecure. It was like somebody's got to be insecure in the relationship. And I just laugh. It's so true in that sense. And so, yeah,
What does she mean by that? Tell us what secure means in a relationship. It took me a long time before I realized that I didn't have to finish my workday feeling frustrated, drained, frustrated. Can I say that again? And unfulfilled. It doesn't have to be that way. That's the good news. And you don't need a new job to do it. Patrick Lencioni, who is author of the legendary book, Five Dysfunctions of a Team, and more than a dozen other bestsellers, created the Working Genius Assessment to help you pinpoint the kind of work, the tasks at work that give you energy, and the kind that drains your energy. Over 1 million people, including me, have taken it. It's simple, it's effective, it's affordable, and if you take the assessment today and you use the code Achiever at workinggenius.com, you'll get 20% off. I had Patrick Lencioni on the show, and he's a neurodivergent leader. Yes, he is. And he's very open also about his former existence as an anxious achiever. But Patrick credits what is now Working Genius with the change in how he works, a workday that finds him playing to his strengths and not doing the things that no matter how hard he tries, he's never going to be good at. So check out the Working Genius Assessment and get 20% off with the code Achiever at workinggenius.com. That's workinggenius.com. Think of a workflow that you execute every week and you wish you could just not do it, that it could run itself. With Notion's new custom agents, you can consider, like those weekly status reports, handled. A status update agent can automatically scan your progress each week, synthesize key updates, and compile them into a report. Can even send it out to your team. If you create a lot of content or you're busy or you're traveling and you still have to handle all the correspondence and the report outs and the follow up, your brain can feel like it's in a gazillion places at once, whether or not you're an anxious achiever or you have a busy brain or you're neurodivergent. I love Notion. It keeps me organized. I love that I can just look at a calendar and see what's happening when. And now with custom agents, it's like having another team member to do things that, frankly, I find annoying. Notion is an AI powered connected workspace for teams. Notion brings all your notes, docs, and projects into one space, and it just works. It's seamless, flexible, powerful, and it's fun to use. And I hate tools, but I like Notion. And with AI built right in, you spend less time switching between tools and apps and more time creating great work. Now, with Notion's custom agents, the busy work that used to take hours, or let's face it, didn't actually happen, runs itself. So you can try custom agents now at notion.com/achiever. That's all lowercase, notion.com/achiever, and try custom agents today. And when you use this link and promo code, you're supporting the show. So that's notion.com/achiever. Shopify is the commerce platform behind millions of businesses around the world and 10% of all e-commerce in the US. I use it. I have this one incredible cashmere throw wrap, and it is something that I buy for the people I love in my life and professional colleagues, friends. It's just like giving someone a warm hug. And when I buy it, because I've bought it many times in different colors, when I see that purple Shop Pay button up top, I know that my transaction will be secure and easy. That's Shopify. And if you're a seller, Shopify is having like a design studio, a marketing partner, and a sales expert in your pocket. It has world-class expertise in everything from managing inventory to international shipping, processing returns, and beyond. It accelerates your efficiency, whether you're uploading new products or trying to improve existing ones. Shopify is packed with helpful AI tools that write product descriptions, page headlines, even enhance product photography. You can tackle all your important tasks in one place, from inventory to payments to analytics and more. You don't need to save multiple websites, try to figure out what platform is hosting the tool. It's all in one place, which means that me, as your purchaser, knows that it's all in one place and I can just click the little purple button at the top of the purchase screen. See less carts go abandoned and more sales go with Shopify and their Shop Pay button. Sign up for your $1 a month trial today at shopify.com/anxiousachiever. Go to shopify.com/anxiousachiever. And here your sales go.
Yeah, I think the thing is that where it goes to the paradox of attachment. You feel that connection, that security where you don't worry about the relationship. You can actually move away from the relationship in a healthy way, where you have a sense of autonomy, sense of independence, and you feel connected at the same time. And so I would say to fall in that preoccupied space. And my wife's like pretty secure. And we talk about these dynamics and we're aware of these dynamics in our marriage. And so, for example, she goes to work. Like, of course, when she goes to work, she's only thinking about work. She's not sitting there and thinking about like our relationship. And so for me, I might, like, let's say we're gone in the morning, we have maybe a rupture in our relationship. I will walk out the door, maybe being a little too preoccupied about the relationship, and it could be affecting my work performance. With her, she's like, you know what, I'm good. We'll work through it. We'll talk about it when we get home. And so they have a healthy like balance of like needing connection, but also a healthy balance of autonomy. They have a healthy balance of like being aware of the relationship, but not being too preoccupied about the relationship. So secure is in that middle of throttling or like kind of landing between avoidant and also anxious. Think about a secure boss. They're connected to you, but they're not threatened by you. They're connected to you, but they trust you. They're connected to you, but they don't micromanage you. They're connected to you, and they also want you to like grow in your professional career. They're not threatened by you. They're not like threatened by you leaving the company. They want to see you grow. And so think about like we've had like maybe secure bosses or insecure bosses, and that attachment style is directly impacting how they manage working with you.
Can you think of a time in your own life when your own preoccupied attachment style bumped up against a manager or a colleague who was a very different style?
Yeah, man. I'm just thinking where like an avoidant kind of boss, a supervisor in a sense, where they weren't really prone to want to connect. And so then that kind of created anxiety of like me over-interpreting, like, what did I do wrong? I'm always thinking about, I'm like, and also to that avoidant person maybe is not really mindful about being connected to people in the work. So they're not doing check-ins, they're not doing one-on-ones, they're not maybe consistent about their meetings and those things. They're not good about giving feedback.
Right.
So to a person who falls into kind of the anxious preoccupied space, it's going to spike my anxiety going like, I don't know if I'm doing well on my job. So then my anxiety actually is going to increase my insecurity because I'm not getting that feedback. And so the thing is for you is to be aware of like, okay, so in reality, I've got to own that. And so what I got to do is like, okay, maybe my boss is a little avoidant. I'm preoccupied. I need feedback. So I'm going to have to take control of this. I'm going to have to maybe take responsibility for this and maybe drive the process and not rely on my boss to do it if I'm going to survive and do well in this job. Owning the dynamic is so important in that business kind of like relationship.
Owning the dynamic. Say more about what this looks like in practice.
So it's first off, I think it's so important for us to be aware of what is your attachment style. And there's great tools out there to kind of take the attachment test. And so being aware of like, okay, I'm preoccupied. And so like, even like my relationship with my wife, where I'm going to be probably wanting more connection and more validation and needing my ego stroked and being aware of how that can create stress in the relationship. And so owning the dynamic means that I'm going to be pulling more in and being aware of like, you know what, she's secure. So she's not going to need as much as I need in that. So I have to maybe like manage my need for that and be aware of that. And the way to owning that dynamic is actually starting to decode the feedback. And so, for example, where maybe she'll give me feedback about that connection in other ways, maybe not so overt. Maybe she'll be like doing things that will like support the connection. That's not saying like, Jack, you're the best. She'll say it in other ways in her behavior. Preoccupied people, we have to kind of like decode it. And it's maybe like we're looking for those overt kind of feedback, but in reality, there's a lot of subtle feedback that the connection is secure that I have to pick up on, which means I'm owning the dynamic.
Okay, Jack, so I'm going to ask you a more theoretical question, but one that I think is interesting. When you think about attachment styles and how they show up at work, how does this define what you would call good leadership? How do leaders need to bring in attachment theory into their leadership?
I think it's important to be self-aware, like what's driving our behavior, like developing insight and having insight into our triggers, insight into what makes us shut down or get emotional reactive. I mean, we're all emotional beings. And I think, like I said, that knowing your attachment style is a really good place to start into developing insight into your anxiety or what makes you overwhelmed or what are your triggers. And because once again, work is such an interpersonal process and work is going to pull out your patterns. Your book talks about the family system, like understanding your family system. And a work is a system. It's like a little family system. You got people that might be the dad or the mom or the siblings. And I could tell you stories where, like, I was at work, me and Mike, we were both directors, and we had a director we're reporting to, and we were like the siblings, and he was like the dad. And it was like interesting where the patterns played out, where I was the bad kid and he was the good kid, and it made him look like the good kid more, and he got more attention and more accolades from the boss. We talked about that pattern quite a bit. And so the thing is, we talk about attachment and how your history affects your attachment. You're not set in stone. Like you can be a preoccupied like boss or director or a CEO, but you can show up securely. And so important part is really to understand where, okay, this is my pattern and this is my anxiety, but then how do I show up securely? The hardest struggle is knowing what a secure supervisor looks like. What are those patterns? And so I think being aware of like your trigger points, what's going to trigger your attachment anxiety when you start experiencing that is know how to actually respond securely. So those are the steps. A, being aware of your attachment style, and then knowing what a secure boss or a secure follower or a secure supervisor looks like in work shows up can be kind of would help you maybe be more effective as a leader.
And I would imagine this is even more important in times of change. Because, of course, change and uncertainty sends us backwards often.
Uncertainty. Think about our climate today. We have election happening, which can definitely affect like your business. The world changes so much. So Marsha Linehan, who's one of my favorite clinicians who developed DBT, she said the only constant is change, which is uncertainty. And so you think about it. The only thing that's constant in our life is uncertainty. So then uncertainty is going to trigger your attachment style and how you deal with uncertainty.
Why though? Tell us why. Like, just bring us back. I mean, I think we all understand, but like, why does something at work say that I'm worried there's pending layoffs, trigger an attachment style that could have been developed when I was 18 months old?
Man, gosh, like, where do I start with that? It's such a deep, deep question. Like, you think about it, where does our attachment style start? It forms in our family system. And so if I grew up in a very chaotic, maybe had an alcoholic parent or a very chaotic family where my parents were unpredictable, one minute they're like loving me, next minute they're like yelling and screaming at me and being emotionally dysregulated, or they might take off for a week. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this is such an unpredictable environment. So then I'm like, I'm falling into that like preoccupied space, anxious attachment style. The only way I can control my environment is by leaning more into it. So I'm going to be really nice to you. I'm going to try really hard to connect with you more because I don't want you to like leave me. So I'm going to work really hard. I'm going to be like the best friend in the world. I'm going to respond to your texts. I'm going to make sure I send you flowers on your birthday. Because that's how I'm going to control my security.
I'm going to work really, really hard and make you happy if you're my
Yes,
boss.
I'm a high performer. I'm thinking about like what changes are going to be happening in the market way ahead of anybody else. I'm thinking like several steps ahead because I've got to control this because I'm not secure. And so even when business is going well, I'm waiting for the next shoe to drop in that. So I'm like thinking multiple steps ahead, which is my superpower, but also can be freaking emotionally exhausting.
You write, connection is both the outcome and the intervention when it comes to your therapy. And I guess also in healing our attachment styles. What do you mean by that?
You think about the world we're in. The reason why we're having a crisis in mental health is because of disconnection. It's a lack of connection. And that's what's driving anxiety, depression, and high suicide rates. And so the outcome is helping people connect, having consistent, healthy connections. Also, the healing part of it is the connection. That's the intervention, is connecting, which is the outcome is connection. So it's both. And so the thing is, reality is that we're in a mental health crisis. I think we have to conceptualize the workspace is a way for people to get connected and to get their needs met. We used to be so opposed to the idea of like, no, you should not get your needs met at work. We can get our needs met at work. We can have healthy connection, and having healthy connection at work can actually make us a healthier person. And so I think it's okay to kind of like shatter that concept. And how do you, as an organization, how are you maintaining and building connections to help people feel connected? Because we're in such a disconnected world.
I want us to pretend that we work in an ideal team where we can talk about things and we have a lot of psychological safety. And I'm the new boss. And I have a bunch of people working for me. And I know that I tend to have a little bit of an avoidant attachment style. How do I set this team up to work with me to get what they need? What do I say to them?
I just think is, first off, you're aware of your attachment style, which is so important. That's like 50% of the process right now. Being aware of like, hey, I'm avoidant, which means I probably going to have to stretch myself and get outside my comfort zone to actually meet the needs of my team. And so the reality is that you're being avoidant means you're also a taskmaster. You probably thrive in structure. Okay. So you know that about yourself. So, okay, what I'm going to do is that I'm just not going to leave it up to chance for me to connect with my people. So I have to schedule it. I have to like make it like an intentional, a priority, and a part of my job. I think an avoidant person is like, part of my job is connecting. It's part of my job. It's a role responsibility. It's on your job description. So as a taskmaster, as an avoidant person, you want to kind of check your boxes and see it as like, this is important, as maybe doing the budget, whatever. This is important. So you schedule one-on-ones. I think the thing is that I'm really starting to learn more about one-on-ones, the value of one-on-ones, and being consistent. Once again, I'm not good at this. I'm like the reason why I double down on this stuff, because I need it more than anybody else. And so I'm not the expert in this. And so I'm practicing this. I'm hopefully getting better over, 20 plus years here. And so I think things you got to like have structure to your one-on-ones. You got to be consistent on, and it's got to be like a priority in your schedule.
Yeah. What about anxious and anxious? I'm a preoccupied boss, and I have someone on my team who is really high performing and also tends towards being pretty preoccupied and anxious.
So 2 preoccupied people?
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm very familiar with this dynamic. And what happens is that I'm actually learning through this process where you can go down that anxiety rabbit hole together.
Oh, yeah.
Like you can feed off each other. So a preoccupied person has a tendency to be an anxious person. Emotions drive the kind of like their process. And so they have a tendency to get emotionally reactive or dysregulated pretty easy. So you have a preoccupied boss, you have a preoccupied supervisor. So your preoccupied anxious supervisor comes in your office. Oh my gosh, the Chicken Little, the sky is falling. Like we're going to get shut down. Our business is going to close. And then of course that preoccupied person just jumps right into it.
And then it's a party. It's a party.
Yes, it's a party. That's been my biggest struggle is not being an emotionally driven boss or a leader and being more regulated and being that stable force. That's my journey in this process. Like my double-edged sword is I am highly driven. I'm highly looking at like threats in the future. I can predict things. I'm looking at the market. I'm wanting to be the best program I could possibly be. And that's that strength to that. But the other side of that is that I can get dysregulated and I can get, then other people's anxiety makes me anxious. And then now we're feeding off each other versus being a stabilizing force, what a leader should be.
This isn't something I talk about often, but I am a digital data nerd. Nothing makes me happier than looking at marketing data. It really helps when you want to take your business to the next level. So, meet Brevo, the all in one marketing and CRM platform built to help you connect with customers, boost engagement, and grow your business smarter. With Brevo, you can manage all your customer interactions in one place. You can nurture leads, which is actually really, really important with the built-in CRM, reach your audience through email and text and keep them coming back with powerful automations and workflows. And you can use Aura, Breva's AI assistant. Aura helps you be smarter. It helps you make personalized content and optimize send times and analyze performance data to help you improve your strategy in real time. And of course, Brevo offers really cool advanced analytics and seamless integrations and the AI driven personalization you need to create great multi channel campaigns that hit the mark every time. Get started for free or use code Achiever50 and you can save 50% on starter and standard plans for the first 3 months of an annual subscription. Just head to www.brevo.com/achiever and you can take your marketing further. I'll see you in the spreadsheets. I remember the thrill of filing the LLC paperwork for my first business in 2009. I felt legitimate, but the truth is, I needed a lot of help. I wish that I had had Northwest Registered Agent. Northwest Registered Agent has been helping small business owners and entrepreneurs launch and grow businesses for nearly 30 years. They're the largest registered agent and LLC service in the US, and they have real people who know your local laws and can help you and your business every step of the way. From paperwork, your operating agreement compliance, to website and contact information, all the things that help you create your business identity, right? These are the things that say to the world, hello, I am a legitimate business open for business. Northwest gives you access also to thousands of free guides and tools and attorney drafted documents to help you run your business with confidence and with privacy. You can sign up for a free account to begin managing your business with lawyer drafted operating agreements, bylaws, resolutions, membership certificate, bills of sale, and more, all in one place, all at no cost. And with Northwest, privacy comes standard. Your data is never sold, and all services are handled in house under their privacy by default promise. Don't pay hundreds or even thousands of dollars for what you can get from Northwest for free. Visit northwestregisteredagent.com/achiever free and start using free resources to build something amazing. Get more with Northwest Registered Agent at northwestregisteredagent.com/achiever free. I'm very lucky in that I live in a house full of computer nerds, and they wouldn't let me take my laptop and my data out in the world unprotected. Going online without ExpressVPN is like driving without car insurance. You might be a great driver, but with everyone who's on the road today, why take that risk? Everyone needs a VPN. And this is what I have learned from the nerds in my household. Every time you connect to an unencrypted network, in cafes, hotels, airports, etc., your online data is not secure. And any hacker on the same network can gain access to and steal personal data like passwords or bank logins or credit card details. And honestly, it doesn't take much technical knowledge to hack. I bet the people in my house know more than a basic hacker, right? It just takes some cheap hardware and your data is valuable. You know this. ExpressVPN stops hackers from stealing your data by creating a secure encrypted tunnel between your device and the internet. It's the lowest price ever. Plans start at just $3.49 a month. That's only 12 cents a day. And it's super secure. It would take a hacker with a supercomputer over 1 billion years to get past ExpressVPN's encryption. Secure your online data today by visiting expressvpn.com/achiever. I use it and you should too. That's expressvpn.com/achiever and find out how you can get up to 4 extra months at expressvpn.com/achiever. And you have to have compassion for yourself too, right? You have to, as a leader, especially if you tend to be a little bit more anxious, have the compassion to say, if I start to fall into these old patterns, I need you to help me. Call me out on this, right? Or have a partner. You know, for me, when I owned my business, I had a partner, my COO, Jen, who was everything I wasn't. I was always freaking out. I'm so emotional. I'm so reactive. And she was like the one who's like, it's okay. Here's the spreadsheet. Here's the projection. There's going to be other clients, you know, that sort of voice of reason. I feel like we find our work spouses, our work partners who often, I think, help us regulate. And maybe that is around the people who helped us. You talk a lot about, one of the things that you say that I really love is that to rebuild healthy attachment, it doesn't have to be someone who's going to be another parent figure who's going to be in our lives forever, that even short-term relationships can have a positive effect.
We want to be secure. We want to be confident. We want to have that, like that peace in our life. And people who are in that secure space typically are in that spot. And so the way to get into that space is really like connecting with other secure people. So you can have that kind of anchor. I call them anchors too, like anchors. We all need anchors. Think about it, security, anchor, like think about a boat and like it creates security. So developing and finding anchors. And I have this, like, I don't know, somebody was looking out for me when I was a kid. And I found those anchors with like, well, gosh, I get emotional about this in a heartbeat, like, because it's such a impactful part of my life. I found a couple friends that I got connected and they were my anchors. They were my anchors through high school. They're my anchors through college. We text weekly. We do Ironmans together. We go to concerts together. It's just like this anchor. And the thing is, like, finding those anchors and having that connection can help the healing. It can help you move out of that preoccupied space or that out of that disorganized space, having those connections. We can find those anchors at work and find those anchors with like a coach or a mentor or like, and I think it's really helpful to hire like an executive coaches are great because they can be that anchor for you. I mean, that's the healing part. Knowing what a secure person is or a leader and also building anchors is what's going to help you move or heal into that space.
You say that there's a relationship between your attachment style and burnout.
Yeah, like it's some really fascinating research around attachment styles and job satisfaction. So think about the connection between job satisfaction and burnout. Directly correlate, like not even correlated, it's causal. People who are not satisfied in their job are going to feel burnout. And so think about the different attachment styles we talked about today. Think about preoccupy, avoid, and secure. Who's going to be more satisfied in their job? Secure, right? Because they're feeling more secure, which means they're less likely to maybe misinterpret like failure or lack of performance, or they're not doing well in their job. And so maybe a preoccupied person feels like they're not getting enough feedback, which means they're not feeling satisfied. And then when they're not feeling satisfied, they're feeling more emotionally dysregulated. And then have that pattern of emotional dysregulation also leads to burnout. Also, emotional dysregulation will lead to like disconnection in the workplace, which also leads to burnout as well too, and job satisfaction. And also an avoidant person, they might feel less need for a connection, but in reality, they really do need connection. So they're not feeling connected in the workspace. So they might do job hopping. People who are like anxious attachment style or preoccupied job hop a lot because they're not satisfied. They're moving on to greener pastures, like always what's better at the next job. The thing is to be aware of your pattern. So like, okay, is this really about me or is this really about the job? And so that's where you put your little attachment lenses on and you're able to interpret what you're experiencing through that lens. Is it about me or is it about my boss or is it about the job?
I know that you're a DBT teacher. I'm curious if you have any physical or grounding practices that, especially those of us who have preoccupied styles, but any style, can use when we're in that moment, when we're triggered and we're about to dive into that behavior and we really, we don't want to, or, something that you use to regulate yourself when that attachment lens comes on and says, beep, beep.
Yeah, I think what's so great about DBT is distress tolerance skills. I think there's 4 parts. So this is one that most of us really focus on, and the tip skills, and also to really understand sensory, like using sensory as a skill. And so you think about like we're in our body. Our whole body is about receiving and integrating senses, the sensory information. And so they're really captivating our senses. And so like some of us are maybe dominant in different like vision and like smell or touch and things like that too. And so really diving in of what you really connect with, what sense, and using that as a way to kind of regulate. And so deep breathing is always something that's been really super helpful to like dysregulating, is to maybe deep breathe. Also like sense of touch or like in my feet. And so I've been moments where I've like taken my shoes off and walked in the snow barefoot. I've done that with clients too, where like I'm getting dysregulated, or I want to role model like using your distress tolerance skills to help regulate yourself, pulling your body in. The best way to turn the mind is to turn the body. Like it's so much easier to turn the body. And when you turn the body, you turn the mind. And so if I'm feeling really anxious, I'm going to go out and walk barefoot in snow or on the street or in the grass. And so I'm really turning my body to turn my mind, to stop that loop.
That's it for this week's show. If you like the show, follow us and tell your friends. And please leave us a review. It really helps the Anxious Achiever get found by people just waiting for our content. I'm your host, Maura Aarons-Mele. Lots more to come in the next episode.